What's up, guys? Today we're going to go over client-server interaction with Django. So last time I showed you how Django handles requests from the Django side. But let's talk about how client-server communication is happening in general. So like how a client is going to get a hold of data from the server. So there's two basic ways that we're going to do this with the Django in particular. Okay, one through Django templates, or two through AJAX requests that are going to have to be done manually through JavaScript or jQuery to make things a little bit easier. So we'll start off with the Django templates. So Django templates, Django provides a templating language to work with HTML. Okay, that's going to allow you to find you can consider them dynamic HTML pages. So the basic idea here is that you're going to receive a request, okay, for an HTML page. And I showed you last time how to serve HTML files. But if you just have like a static file there, that isn't going to cut it sometimes. Like sometimes what you're going to want is that request, let's say it might be like a GET request or something like that, where it has parameters with it. And you're going to want to return an HTML page that changes based on those parameters. Okay, maybe the HTML page has a header that displays, a different name based on the parameter of the name, or maybe the HTML page, maybe when you get the request, is going to do a lookup from the database, which is constantly being changed and update, and display some info from the database. Okay, so how are you going to do this? So you can imagine one option you can do is you could read in your HTML file, parse it, insert the data manually, like on the fly, and then send that as your HTTP response. So basically, this is what the Django template language is going to give you the ability to do, but in a nice way, to kind of generate these HTML pages on the fly, inserting data as we need. But that isn't all we're getting from it. We're also getting a mechanism for code reuse of HTML. So programmers, they like to not write the same code over and over again. Sorry, I should phrase that better. They don't want to write the same code over and over again. They like code reuse. Okay, so code reuse is a good thing. Django is going to give us that through an inheritance mechanism that I'll go over. Using Django templates is also going to give us a bunch of built-in compatibility with different Django middleware, including some security like CSRF protection, which I'll show you how to use today. CSRF is a certain type of attack. It's a certain type of exploit that's made that has to do with HTML forms. Basically, a hacker can pretend like you're sending a request from a form that you're not really sending it from, and Django is going to generate these tokens that basically let it know that, like, oh yeah, this request is coming from the proper form. Okay, before we get into that, we're going to have to specify how to add project-wide templates. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go my code here. So I'm going to clone, if you haven't have that cloned already, I'm going to clone that Django templates repo that I keep using. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to cd into that, and we're going to work off of simple app again, just to save us some time. So simple app, it already has a hello app defined. Okay, so it's already got an app created that it routes to, and it already has views.py and stuff inside there. So we're just going to work from this app just to save us a bit of time. So last time I showed you how to create a templates directory and you could put HTML files in those templates directory and then use the render function to render those HTML files. One issue that we have with that is we put the templates directory inside of the apps folder, which for some reason the default Django projects, it's already configured to find templates directories inside of apps folders, but it isn't configured to find the template directory at the project root. Okay, which if we're going to be making certain HTML files that are going to be shared by, let's say, every app in our project, which you're probably going to do, this would be the most logical place to put it. So let's rectify that. So we can start off by actually just creating the directory templates. at the project root. So this will be in the same directory as the manage.py. And now let's edit the simple app there settings.py. Okay, so into Django simple app settings.py. So in simple app settings.py. Okay, so it's inside here. Let's go down. Actually, let's go up, apparently. And let's do two things here. Since I'm working off the simple app, I commented this out. If this is commented out, let's put it back, because we're going to want this CSRF middleware. So make sure this is put back. And then let's go to where we define templates. So you'll see it says app.dirs here is already set to true. This is what let us put the templates directory last time inside of our app folder, and it was able to magically find it right away, which is a good thing that it's set to true like that. But you'll see dirs is empty here. And what we want to do, this is a list. We can put other directories to look for templates directories. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this bit of code here. And we're going to use it. Basically what it's doing is this is going to be the base directory of the project. So this same directory with the manage.py. And it's saying look for templates folders at this directory as well, which is where we're going to put this directory here. Okay, we're also probably going to want to put a static directory. So like last time, templates directory is for putting HTML files. Static directory is for putting JavaScript, CSS, all that other good stuff. Okay, so we're also probably going to want to put a static directory to put different sorts of static files that are used throughout the entire project and not just by a specific app. So in order to do that, we also have to tell the Django that, okay, this is where you find it. So this time we'll go to the very bottom underneath the static URL, and we'll add that bit of code, that static files dirs, and it's the same thing. At the base directory, look for a static file. So now let's make that directory as well. Make directory static. Okay. So now at the base directory, so this is the same directory as our manage.py, we have a static and a templates directory where we could put HTML and CSS and other static assets and JavaScript and all that good stuff that we want to be used by the whole project. Okay, so let's start off with our first Django template. So we're going to create a file. We're going to call it base, and we're going to call it .dj.html. You actually could call it just .html. That's actually it would work just fine. But it's a good idea to call it .dj.html just to signify that this isn't just your average HTML document. This is a Django template HTML document. This will also let your editors, a lot of your editors that have support for editing these types of files, it'll let it know that it's a Django template based sort of file. So let's put this file inside of the templates directory that we just created. So at the project root, we'll add a file. So at this templates base.dj.html. And let's open that file up. So we'll go to templates base.dj.html. Okay, so looking at this file, you can say, yeah, this is your average HTML file for the most part, except for these things, these block pragmas, okay? These curly brace percent sign sort of things going on here, okay? So I have two of them. So where I define my title, I have a block title, and then I have some text inside of it, default block, end block, okay? And then I have under here, I have some block content, end block with nothing inside of it. So what's going on here? So this template, that template is going to be my base template for a certain mechanism known as template inheritance. Okay, so you could also call it my parent template. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this template, okay? And I'm going to write a bunch of other template files, and I'll probably put these files inside of my apps templates directory, so probably be like specific to my app or something, and they're going to extend this template. So the idea here is that like a website, it might use basically the same HTML page over and over again, just with a bit of differences. So the idea here is we can get some code reuse by specifying an HTML page and the basic layout of it, okay, but then separating it into these blocks, and then having files that the first line will be extends whatever we want to use as the parent file, the parent HTML document, and we'll just specify how to fill in these those blocks. Okay. So let's take this code and let's go into our app. So we're using the simple app, so we already have this hello app, so let's just use this app. Let's go into our app, let's make a templates directory there. Okay, and we're going to open up so we're going to go to hello templates, okay, and we're going to call this test.dj HTML. Okay, and we'll paste that code into here. Okay. Okay, at this point, we're going to want to try and serve this HTML code somehow. So we're going to do this via the render function, which I already showed you last time. In fact, in basically the same way that we rendered standard HTML on the lecture on Friday. So to do this, we're going to go to our app directory. We're going to go to our views.py. Okay. So what we do is we import shortcuts, import render, get rid of this, and we're going to return a HTTP, or sorry, we're going to return render. Render, its first argument is going to take a request, and that second argument is going to be the file. So this file is test.dj HTML now. And at this point, we should be able to run the server. So if I remember correctly, so I'll go back. So I'll make sure my Conda environment is activated. Okay. And Python manage.py. Okay, so I run Python. So after I make sure my Conda environment was activated, like Conda activate to Django environment, I ran Python manage.py, run server, localhost 8000. I'm just going to run this locally in the moment. Go here, and so let's go to what it's going to be is something from before, mac1x83/hello. Uh-oh, and I got a little error. So, in this template, I reference base.html, and it's not able to find base.html. So why isn't it able to find base.dj.html? Let's take a look into that. So, first of all, let's see. Is base.dj.html in the right spot? Is it called the right thing? Looks like it. So, did I properly change my settings.py? So Django template simple app, settings.py. Oh, it looks like I didn't save my settings.py. Might have been the only issue. I had this problem last time too. Go here. Oh, and I'm gonna have to run the server again. There we go. And now it works just fine. Okay, always good to make sure that you actually save your files. Okay, so right now we're not really doing anything useful with these templates. So I showed you how to, except for that inheritance. Okay, so I showed you how to get some code reuse out of inheritance, but we're not actually like using templates for what I was saying we want to use it for, which is encoding data from the server inside of the templates. So to do this, we're going to make use of these template variables, which are going to make use of this curly brace syntax. Okay, and this is going to work by providing our template with a dictionary of variables to access. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my server. So I'm going to go to my views.py. Okay, so where I'm performing render here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to define a dictionary. Okay, and this dictionary is going to be a bunch of key value pairs, and anything that's inside this dictionary, you're going to be able to access in your Django template, whatever Django template you're rendering here. Okay, so you can imagine that if you get something from a database, you can just shove it into this dictionary, or if you do some computation, you can just shove it into this dictionary, and now that template will have access to that code. So we're going to do a stupid thing, and we're just going to hard code a bunch of values just to illustrate how this works. So I'll make a dictionary of a person, and that person key will have another dictionary attached to it with values like first name, Curtis, age 59, and it could be a dictionary of like basically anything as long as it's a bunch of primitive types. Okay, and we'll render. When we specify render here, we just add the dictionary as the last variable here. Okay, so now if I go back to my template, so let's get rid of this testing content. Let's make it more interesting. So let's make this a header, and we're going to put person.first name in here. So we can put hello, my name is, and let's put a paragraph underneath it, and I am person.age years old. Okay, and you'll notice I've actually been leaving my Django server running in my terminal this whole time, and every time I save, it just kind of automatically updates. So it just kind of like hot swaps these files and automatically reloads the server for you without missing a beat, which is pretty cool. Pretty neat thing that Django can do. So now I'll just go back to my page and let's reload. Awesome. So now I'm sending this data back that originated from the server onto the client. Okay, but templates are much more than a way to just kind of inline some data like this. There's actually like a whole kind of programming language built into templates. So when of course, when I say that there's a whole programming language built into templates, that means that there's going to be conditionals and loops. Okay, so let's start off with if. So we could use an if tag. So let's go back, And let's actually extend our dictionary a little bit. So remember, yeah, there's a dictionary, so I could just keep adding more key value pairs to it. So let's extend it a little bit. Let's put another key, X, okay? And X will be 0. And in my content block here, I'll add some of these if pragmas. If X is smaller than 0, and I'll have a little paragraph here that says X is negative. If X is bigger than 0, and all of these like standard comparison operators are available inside the if, so like less than, equals to, does not equals to, they're all available. P X is positive. And finally, else X is 0. And we end it with an end if. Okay, don't forget that end if to end. Okay, so let's check this out. X is 0. Oh, did I just type is 0? Yeah, I did. X is 0. Okay, that's a good sanity check. That if X is less than 0, greater than 0, then it must be 0. Okay, so that's the if pragma. We also have a for pragma. Okay, so this for loop is useful for a variety of things. You can imagine if you send back a key with a list attached to it of things in it, and you might want to render a bunch of these things in an HTML document, maybe in a list of itself. So if you remember how we do lists in HTML, so we could use UL for unordered, or OL for ordered. So it's basically going to be the difference between like a bullet point list or a list of like 1, 2, 3, and then inside of this element, this UL elements, you put individual list items like item 1. Okay, let's copy this. Item 2. Okay. And you see it just renders these as bullets. So let's say, let's go back to our dictionary here. And let's give it a list. People to kill. And there'll be a list of Jim and John and Joseph. Okay. And all the people whose name starts with G that we want to kill in a video game. Okay. So how are we going to render this into our list? So we're going to need this for pragma. So we're going to put for, and it's going to be a syntax that you should all be used to by now. It'd be for in syntax. So for people in people to kill. Okay. And now we're basically going to have access. This people is basically just going to be a variable that we can use like any of these other variables that we used before. Okay. So we could do something like li dash li. Okay. And this is going to generate n4. And this is going to generate a bunch of, whoops. This is going to generate a bunch of these li elements with people inside it. Nice. Okay, so I meant to include a link to this. You can look this up quickly, Django template tags. And you'll find, you should look inside the Django docs, okay? Make sure it's up to date. And you'll find a list of all sorts of different template tags that you could be using here. It's useful to look at. You look at how for works inside different ways. You could look at how there's all these ifs, all the comparison operators for ifs. Okay, so you could do an if and you guys if not. Okay, and then there's a variety of these filters. So you could check if you're giving like a list messages, you get the length of it and stuff like that. So there's a variety of different useful tags that you might want to use. You can look them up as you need them. For the most part, though, you can kind of get away with. For the most part, you'll get away with just inserting variables and some conditionals and loops here and there. Okay, so the Django templates, they're pretty cool. Okay, but they do have their drawbacks. Okay, so whenever we're really receiving a template, first of all, we're generating the entire template on the server, and then we have to like reload the entire page to reflect that template. Like we're going to receive a whole new HTML page that we have to update. Okay, so if you have like larger HTML pages, like let's say you're responding to somebody pressing a button, okay, to get an update from a server about that just wants to change, the name of the page or something. Not the name of the page, but a header on a page or something like that. Just like one part of a page. Having to reload the whole page is kind of annoying. So for that, we have AJAX. So AJAX stands for Asynchronous JavaScript and XML. It's a pretty stupid name. It was kind of like named with not very good hindsight because not too many people use XML and all anymore, and we're not even going to focus it at all. We're going to use JSON. It works just as well with JSON. The asynchronous part is a weird thing to focus on as well, but you should note that it's asynchronous in nature. So let's say you make a post request with AJAX, and you make another post request with AJAX. Like it's not gonna stop everything to make that post request. It's gonna let other JavaScript execute while it's making that post request. Okay, so it's not gonna strictly order everything. It's gonna be asynchronous. Okay, and it's gonna allow you to update, like manipulate just part of the DOM. Okay, without having to reload the entire page, which is a desirable thing, particular for when you're using HTML forms. Okay, before we get to that though, let's talk about how to configure this with the Django. So we're gonna have to do a little bit of work to get it to work with that CSRF middleware that we were talking about before. So it's just a little bit of work. So what we need to do is let's copy this code, and we're going to add this code in a second. But before we add that code, let's actually go back to our base template. Okay, let's go back to base.dja.html, and I'm going to do two things. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add the jQuery import. So let me just look up quickly because I never remember. I'll do that off heart. Yeah. So I'm going to go to my head section here, and I'm going to import jQuery because I'm going to be writing JavaScript code that needs the jQuery library. So let's just import jQuery up here. Okay. And then I'm going to go to the bottom of my body, and then rather than adding the script to my base template, because I might want different scripts for different HTML files going on here, I'm going to add a block pragma for the script. Let's say block script. So this will be my way of inserting a script at the bottom of the body of any HTML document I'm working off of. Okay. So now I can go back to my test.dj.html, and I'm going to implement that script. I'm going to implement block script. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. Let's copy this code again. Okay, so there's a few things going on here that I should talk about. So first of all, so JavaScript, I'm going to be linking to a JavaScript file, which is a static asset, and I haven't loaded any static assets yet, so I need to put this load static pragma here first, okay? And then secondly, in my JavaScript file, I'm going to be making use of AJAX posts, okay, for forms. So I'm going to want to make use of the Django middleware to stop CSRF attacks, okay? And to do that, I need to kind of get access to the token that the Django is going to generate for us. That's going to tell that's going to let the web server know that the form that's posting is the right form, okay, and not some malicious form trying to do stuff. So I'm just going to put this line of code before my script, okay, my custom script. Okay, so this line of code, you kind of just take it as is. Just put it before that script, okay? And I'm going to link to my JavaScript script, and I'm going to use this static pragma to do that, because I'm going to put this file. I decided to call it test.js, I guess. So I'm going to put this file test.js in one of my static folders, okay? In the static folder of probably that I want to put in the static folder of the same app that I have my test.djhtml. So let's do that right now. So I'm going to open up. So in the same place where I have hello, I'm going to open up static test.js. Okay, and I need to actually make the directory. Okay, the directory wasn't there before, so I needed to actually make it. So you make that static directory, and you add that file to it. Okay, but before we get to that, let's add our HTML form. Okay, so this is a sample form, okay, that we're going to use to do a AJAX post, okay, to a server. All right, so W3 Schools has a great resource for how to work with forms, okay, the different types of forms that you can use. This type of form is going to have a text field, okay, and it's going to have a button to submit that text field. And I'm going to put the this tag here. This is what makes it specific to Django templates. I'm going to put this tag here with the CSRF token, okay, that we just kind of retrieved before. And make note, I give this form an ID. Make note of this ID because we're going to need it to reference this form from our jQuery code. Finally, I'm also going to put this action. HTML forms, they have like built-in ways of doing their own kind of like posts and GET requests. We're actually going to prevent that from happening. Usually you would put where you want to post, and you put the method here like post or get. We're not going to make use of this. We're going to do the post ourselves from jQuery. Okay, so we're just going to put this dash here. So let's take this code and let's put it into our test.djhtml. So let's go to our content block here. Okay, let's go to our content block here, and let's put it at the end of our content block. Okay. Whoops. Okay, so now we're going to have this form. Okay, we have this file. And let's go to our code and let's try it. Let's just take a look at this quickly. Okay, I am getting an error because I can't find test.js, so let's make sure that that's in the right spot in a bit. But you can see our form is just a text field and submit here. You could look at W3 Schools. There are other forms like you could add, if you look through these forms, it lists different types of input types, okay, and you can label them and stuff. So you could use this same layout and just put different input types here if you want, and get it to work in basically the same way as this code. But we'll focus on just text forms for now. Okay, So let's write the JavaScript code now to handle our AJAX requests. So before we do that, let's just make sure that our JavaScript is working properly. So we have this file. So where is it? It's in the hello app static. Okay, so that seems good. And it's called test.js. Okay, it seems good. So maybe just because we didn't have anything in it yet. So $, let's write our document. So this is going to be jQuery. So let's do our document ready function. And let's just put a console.log. Script is working. Okay, let's give that a try. And it is having trouble finding it. Static test.js. So why is it having trouble doing that? So let's actually close this off. I think it's because I added the new folder. I have to actually restart the server. I'm willing to bet. So let's just take a look. Is it in the right spot? Hello, static test.js. Yep. Let's restart the server. And let's try again. Yep, now it's working. Yeah, so it was mostly just because I added that new folder. I needed to actually restart the server. So the server, you can't always just expect it to figure out what's going on without restarting it. Okay, so now our test script is working. So what are we going to do inside our jQuery code? So what we're going to do is let's locate the form ID, and I'm actually going to change some of this code around a bit. So, whoops, let's open our code back up. Test.js. Okay, so let's select, hopefully you haven't forgotten your jQuery guys. Let's select this form by ID. So how do we select it by ID? Hashtag form underscore ID. And forms have a particular event that you can react to called submit. Okay, so we could say on submit when the form is submitted, which is going to happen when you click this button, the way I set it up. Then submit the function on submit. So we're going to have a function here on submit, and it's going to take an argument event. Okay, and this event, I think it's prevent default. It's going to call prevent default. Let me just make sure that's the right function. Yeah. Yeah, so basically this is gonna, like I was saying before, forms have like a built-in way of doing these post requests and stuff. So let's prevent that built-in way and let's do it the jQuery AJAX way. So we're gonna prevent that, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna use this $.post, okay, to make a post request. So this $post, it's gonna take three things. So the first thing it's going to take, you actually look at our slides again. The first thing it's going to take is a URL. Okay, so this URL is going to be relative to the current domain. So whether you're on like mac1x83.ca or it's localhost 8000 or whatever path comes after that, that's where you're posting to. So you're going to post what path you're going to go to. Okay, so let's define this path. So we'll put let URL path equal So e/macid/test_ajax. So this path doesn't exist yet, so we're going to have to go to our urls.py to add this path in a moment. But until then, so we're going to put, URL path here. So the second thing this is going to take is going to be some JSON data, which we can just give it a JavaScript object as it is, as long as it's like primitive JavaScript values for values. So we need some JSON data. So what are we going to want to send it? Well, we're going to want to send it the value of the current form. Okay. So let's take this code here. So basically, what we can do, just to explain this code a little bit, is so remember, this submit function was called on the object that was found from querying form ID. Okay, so this is going to be the form object. So then we can take this form object, and you see this form here. This form had an input here. Okay, so this is the text field, and I called that f name, right? So whenever you have a form, you can use this find input, okay, and you could find the input with name, whatever you decided the name was, right? So if I had multiple text fields, I could distinguish between each text field by finding this name, right? In fact, it doesn't even have to be text fields. If I had multiple input fields, I could distinguish between what input field with what value is here, okay? And I'm going to get its value. So this is going to be whatever I put in the input field. Okay, so then I'm going to put let data equals, and so this is going to be a key value pair of name with that name here. Okay, and then the last thing this is going to take is a callback function. Okay, so basically what's going to happen is I'm going to send this post, this AJAX post, to this URL on the server with this data. The server is going to handle it, and then it's going to send a response. Okay, and it's going to send a response with some JSON data. So I'm going to write a function handle response. Okay, and I'll find it up here. Handle response, and this function is going to take some JSON data, okay, and a status code. All right, and for now, I'm just going to write got response. We'll come back to this function in a second. Okay, so now we need to pay attention to our server. Okay, so let's go back to our views.py. So actually, let's go back to views.py and urls.py. Okay. So we're gonna have to go to simple app hello urls.py. Yeah. Okay. So right now, the only path we have is hello goes to hello view here. So we're gonna have to make a path for test AJAX. So remember, e/macid is already there because of the other urls.py that's inside of the simple app folder at the project group. So we'll write test AJAX here, and we'll send that to views, and we'll define a view test_ajax view. Okay, and you'll see my server is giving me an error because test AJAX view doesn't exist yet. So let's go to our views.py and define it. Okay, and I already showed you guys in the lectures on lecture on Friday how to handle this. Let's actually define this above. Oops. Okay, so I already showed you how to basically handle requests on Friday. So if you just refresh your memory, what we're going to do is we're going to say, so this request object is going to have a post here because I'm sending a post to it, and that post is going to have a bunch of key value pairs, and I know that one of the keys is going to be name because of the data that I sent here. So I'm going to get name from it, and I'm going to cover the scenario that, like, oh, if there wasn't a name, then I'll use no name as defaults. Okay. And then this would usually be the time that I do something interesting with that data on the server, like look it up in the database or something like that. We'll get into databases next week. So for now, just kind of illustrate a point, I'll just do something silly, like I'll define a new name is equal to name plus is a cool guy. Alrighty. So then I'm probably going to want to put this inside. So I need to put this inside of a dictionary, and I'll give it the key new name. Oops, that should be new name. Okay. Now the idea here is I need to send back a JSON response. So I'm going to go, so usually I've been sending back this HTTP response. So from the same module that I import this HTTP response, I'm going to import JSON response. And I'm going to return a JSON response. Okay. And I can return the way JSON response, this JSON response object works is I can just give it any dictionary as long as it's like primitive values in the dictionary, it'll convert it to JSON for me. All right, awesome stuff. So now I should be able to run the server and it's already running. Okay, so far so good. I'll enter my name, and I got a response. Okay, so let's do something more interesting with that. So now let's go back to this handle response. So what can we do with this? Let's go back to our tests.dj.html. So underneath this form, let's make a header. Let's give it ID. H1 ID. Haven't received nothing yet. Okay, so the interesting thing with AJAX that you can do is like you could send a request to the server, get a response, and then update the DOM, okay, asynchronously of other requests, okay, so that means like not necessarily having to wait for other requests to complete, and without having to update like the entire DOM, without having to manipulate the entire DOM, okay, so let's try to change, so I'm going to do hashtag, I'll select that H1, and I'll change its text to be data.new name, okay? And I know that it returns new name because that was the key I sent back in my test AJAX view. Okay, so let's go back and reload this. And let's try it again. Jimmy is a cool guy. Curtis is a cool guy. Nice. So this is a really useful thing. If you tried to do, you could try and do something similar with just the Django templates, but you would kind of notice that like the entire page is reloaded while you're doing this. Well, where over here it's obvious that you're just kind of manipulating part of the DOM on the fly. Okay, so in general, when it comes to like forms, you want to use AJAX requests for this sort of stuff. Okay, and that concludes what we're going to go over for today. We're getting closer and closer to building real servers inside Django. See you later, guys.